Major dilemma that I think you really moved forward with courage and correctness, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for giving me the privilege of taking the next call. I want to add to the comments made by the member who's just resumed his seat, Honourable David Parker, in relation to John Boscawen's comments, but I want to recall different comments that he made during his contribution. John Boscawen began his speech by saying, "Why are we now paying more and getting less?"
That's right. He did.
In ACC. He asked the House the question, under ACC now we're going to pay more and get less. Why is that? Well, the answer, Mr. Chairman, is very simple, because we've got a National Act government that will make New Zealanders pay more levies, pay higher levies and get less, get reduced entitlements. That's what you get under a National Act government. So Mr. Boscawen should ask that question looking into the mirror. What part has he played in making sure that New Zealanders now under ACC have to pay more and get less? As an example of that, I want to look at Clause 54 in Part 2, which is the part that we're debating just at this moment, and I think this debate's going to go on for some time by the number of people that I've seen seeking calls. The part that I want to refer to, where people certainly will be paying more and getting less, is in the vocational independence. It's a lovely term, isn't it, Mr. Chairman, vocational independence. It makes it sound as if people have had an injury, have had proper high-quality rehabilitation, and are now able to move back into a paid job if that's what they had before, or in fact if they didn't have a paid job previously, if they were a younger person, if they were a student, if they were a parent, with primary responsibility for caring for their children, maybe they weren't in a paid job. So vocational independence sounds great. What the National Party have done is gutted the basis of vocational independence. They've made three major changes in this amendment, and Clause 54 refers to that assessment, but it doesn't give the details of those dramatic changes. The first is that people will no longer have their pre-injury earning capacity considered as part of the vocational assessment process. So, for example, Mr. Chairman, if you're a Minister of the Crown earning quite a good income and you have the misfortune, and I wouldn't wish this on any Ministers of the Crown, but you have the misfortune of having an injury, you go through some rehabilitation, part of your vocational assessment will no longer, under this legislation, require your earning capacity as a minister to be taken into account. So the vocational assessor might say to the minister, you're fit to work as a cleaner in a minister's office. And that would be determined under this amendment as having vocational independence. Well, there's one word for that: unfair. It is not fair for a person to be moved so dramatically from one scale of earning or potential earning to another which is much lower because of an injury. Their pre-injury earning capacity should remain as part of the consideration. The officials confirmed to the Select Committee, and I'll give them credit for that, that changing must to may can also then be interpreted by a vocational assessor as may not. So actually it won't give a toss to the vocational assessor what the person was earning before their injury. All they'll be interested in is turfing them off ACC. It won't even matter, and this is the second change that I want to refer to, Mr. Chairman, it won't even matter if they are assessed as having capacity to do a job. It won't matter if that is a real job or not. It won't matter if there is such a job available in New Zealand. We had many examples of that in the 1990s, where this legislation is now headed. Many examples where people were determined to have the capacity, for example, to be a lift operator. Mr. Chairman, I'd ask the House, when was the last time anyone in this House went into a lift in Kirkaldy's and Smith & Co., in Ballantyne's and James Smith's? When was the last time any one of us got into a lift and had a lift operator saying, which floor would you like to go to, madam or sir? We don't have lift operators in New Zealand anymore. Those were the olden days which this Clause 54, Part 2 of this amendment bill will take, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. That is exactly the situation that this clause will take us back to, because it removes the requirement for the job that the person's assessed to be capable of doing as being a real job. The other example that I recall very well was a man who was assessed as being capable of being a tap dancer. I haven't seen a lot of jobs going in New Zealand to earn money, to keep a family as a tap dancer, but that was what the vocational assessor said. And later that same week, Paul Holmes interviewed the tap dancer, and it was then revealed that the man who had been assessed by ACC as being vocationally independent, able to move off ACC, deemed to be fit to be a tap dancer, only had one leg. That would be a very, very hard duty to perform. That is exactly what this amendment makes possible again, and the Minister is right to hang her head and keep her mouth closed. She should be, and seems to be, ashamed of what she is doing to ordinary, hard-working New Zealanders who have had the misfortune to be injured. That is exactly what this amendment takes us back to. No consideration of pre-injury earning capacity. Georgina Tuhuhu thinks it's funny. Well, I don't think it's funny that somebody who has a high-paying good job, who has worked hard to get ahead in their career, is offering their family good financial support because of their hard work and determination, will now be told by ACC that that doesn't count anymore. They are fit to do a very low-paid job, a menial job with no career prospects. Under this amendment, that is all right. Well, it's not all right, Mrs Tuhuhu, and I will be very interested to seeing members of the Māori community front up to that member and say exactly what the impact will be on Māori families. That member should be raising questions with her ministerial colleagues rather than laughing at the unfair treatment that this amendment will dish out to them. Mr Chairman, the third change in the work capacity vocational independence assessment outlined in clause 54 is the reduction in hours. People currently have to be determined to be fit to do a real job, taking into consideration their pre-injury earning capacity, for 35 hours a week. That's fair. It's not a full-time job, but it's pretty close to it. 35 hours a week is in the main enough to keep a family on. This amendment reduces that requirement to 30 hours, and if you're determined to be capable of working for only 30 hours in a low-paid job, and you're able to get a low-paid job, Mr Chairman, you frankly can't keep your family going on that many hours a week. It's just not possible if you are the primary income earner. So what we're saying to injured people is, we don't care what you were doing before the injury, we don't care if there's a real job or not, and we don't care that you can't afford to keep your family on 30 hours a week. Mr Chairman, that is not what Labor says. Labor says people should have what they were earning before their injury taken into account in the assessment process. They should be able to work for 35 hours a week, and the job that they are determined as being fit to do should be a real job. That is what ordinary New Zealanders who have the misfortune of having an injury deserve out of a scheme that they pay for. They pay for it out of their hard-earned income. They deserve fair treatment when they are injured. Mr Chairman, that is all the New Zealand public want. They don't want what National and ACT are dishing up, pay more for ACC but get less. They just want a fair go. I frankly don't think that that's too much to ask. Throughout this legislation are amendments that cut back provisions that people now expect as being part of the social contract they have bought into with the government. We will see increased calls for the right to sue, and I'm sure that the Minister, Pansy Wong, or Associate Minister, whatever her position currently is, will say, well, maybe people should have the right to sue. Why would any one of us want to take New Zealand down a track of litigation, of stress, of money into lawyers' pockets, of many hundreds of people losing their entitlement and their rights to a fair go through the court system when we